Defence analyst and former British Army officer, Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford. Good afternoon, sir. Let's break it down in simplistic terms, shall we? What is the risk of this escalating into a much larger war and potentially maybe even World War III?
Good afternoon. Well, I think the potential for this to lead to World War III is pretty low at the moment, to be honest. What's happened, as you've rightly reported, is that the Houthis are adamant or determined, if you like, continue their attempted strikes on international shipping in the Red Sea. And the US and the UK plus others are pretty determined to make them stop. And that's where we are at the moment. It's not exactly an impasse, because the first time the Houthis, relatively speaking, got a bit of a slap in the wrist. This time they probably got a slap round the shoulders or around the neck. And if they continue with their intransigence, who knows what's going to happen next? I think another aspect that we must be aware of is that there is evidence that we are now deploying special forces to intercept the transfer of arms from Iran to the rebels. And that's probably ongoing. We'll learn more about that as it develops.
Interesting. Now, the aim is to deter and degrade the Houthi rebels. Are these strikes enough to achieve that?
Well, clearly not yet. But I would think that the strikes will be upgraded, if you like. We will up the ante, and they'll become more and more powerful until such times as we hope the Houthis will desist and realise that they're on a hiding to nothing.
And do we have enough? Sorry, Stuart. Do we have enough capability for all that?
Well, the Americans do, and we have as well. We're very lucky in having what I call our permanent aircraft carrier in Cyprus, which I know is controversial, but that saves us having to send one of our two new aircraft carriers there at the moment. And I think we've got the weaponry and the troops or the military forces in place at the moment for what is called for. Plus, of course, we have the naval assets in the Red Sea and what they're doing to down some of the missile attacks against Israel and against shipping.
Stuart, Penny Mordaunt yesterday was saying that we needed to increase our defence spending. I think over the past decade, at least, we've been rapidly falling down the ranks in terms of spending compared to GDP. Would you back calls for Grant Shapps to increase spending at the next review?
Oh, very much so. I think it's absolutely essential if we're going to be able to continue our role as a global power, if that's what we want to do, and also as the USA's most dependable and regular ally. The NATO sort of benchmark for defence spending is 2% of GDP. We're slightly over that at the moment over the past few years, 2.1, 2.2 thereabouts. I think we really need to go to 3% of GDP to begin to restore the armed forces that we were able to field 20 years ago. And it's interesting that Poland, for example, is spending 4.5% of its GDP on defence matters because it's faced with a revanchist Russia, if you like. So absolutely. And Penny Mordaunt, who has a naval background, will know what's required.
Now, there is a fear, just finally, Stuart, there is a fear that sometimes we may bite off more than we can chew when it comes to interventions in this region. Is there a risk?
There is. I mean, absolutely there is. I mean, I think that I've said before, to you, Emily, actually, that, the Houthis and the Hezbollah and Hamas and the axis of resistance are all the symptoms of what's going on and what's going wrong in the Middle East. But, of course, the cause is Iran. And at some point, Iran has to be confronted. But that is a major undertaking which most people would see as an absolute last resort. And we're certainly not in a position to do that at the moment.
Well, thank you very much indeed for your time. Former British Army officer, Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford, always good to speak to you.